Talking now about Utah's newest wide receiver. Utah has continued to be active in a portal. They're trying to upgrade what was an abysmal passing offense a season ago. And they just signed Justin Stevenson, a freshman receiver who just wrapped up his first year with Wyoming. The 6'1", 192-pound receiver from Katy, Texas, had 17 receptions for 204 yards, 3 touchdowns, and averaged 12 yards per catch. Never had over 100 yards in a game, only went over 50 yards once. But as just a freshman making plays in the Mountain West at various times, I'm encouraged by this addition. Just like us Utah fans are obviously fired up about Zacharias Williams and the flashes he showed against UCF. Just like we're excited about Dorian Zipper and the couple catches he made last year. A lot of these guys, when you're looking at a young receiver, to me, you're looking like, okay, is there a potential for them to break out next year? Not all of Justin Stevenson, Zipper, Williams, and obviously there's other transfer portal receivers that I want to touch on that Utah's now added in a moment because I like the work that they've done upgrading their receiver core from last season. They maybe even could still get Dorian Singer back with the new eligibility ruling that is going to give players that 5th year. So we'll see if he can win that, although he's trying to get that year. Although we'll see how that all works out since it was what the whole situation with him playing the 5th game and everything. But anyway, so back to Stevenson. This is a guy that I'm excited about because he has potential. One of Stevenson, Zipper, or Williams, I do, and maybe even 2 of the 3 are going to have big years for Utah this coming year. I think they're going to be wide receiver ones. I think they're going to benefit Jason Beck's offense. Speaking of Jason Beck, I think he really liked what he saw from Justin Stevens in their game against New Mexico. In that game, Stevenson had 3 catches for 45 yards, had 1 run for 7 yards too, and a touchdown in the contest. So made a couple plays there. Also, you know what I love to look at when we're talking about a guy like this? When you faced off against the best team on your schedule, how did you perform? That being 12th ranked Boise State. He had 4 catches for 82 yards, including a 63-yard reception and a touchdown. This is a guy who got better as the season wore on with his 2 best games coming in his final 4 games. So in the month of November, he was playing his best football. I think he's a guy, and Wyoming had their issues, right? It was not an elite passing attack, so I'm sure there was opportunities left on the field and was only a freshman. We see guys make a big leap freshman to sophomore year. I think Stevenson has real potential with this Utah offense to be a difference maker come 2025. I do like his ability. I like his game. I like the fact he averaged 12 yards per reception to 6'1", got a solid catch radius to go in there. This to me is a guy who has a chance to be a starter for this Utah football team. And speaking of the starters for Utah football at the wide receiver spot, this wide receiver room starting to round into form. If they can land Dorian Singer, if they can get him to come back with the eligibility, that would be massive. As I think he's one of the best receivers in college football last year. I do think he's one of the 30. He was one of the 30 best that, if given a better offense, would have showcased that. And for those of you saying, he only had 700 yards. Devon Vele was one of the 30 best receivers in college football a season ago. Just didn't have the quarterback play. Hence why he's now in the NFL making plays on a playoff team in the Denver Broncos. So when you talk about Stevenson, this to me is a guy who'll have a chance to complete right away. I'm going to leave Singer out of this because we don't know where he's going to end up. Right now, I think Otto Tia, the wide receiver that Utah landed from Utah State, who had 44 catches for 434 yards, 7 touchdowns overall. I think he went off against Utah too. Let's not forget 5 for 78. I think he is going to be Utah's wide receiver 1 right now. And I think Stevenson is a great opportunity to join him. And then right now, Zipper and Williams, to me, will be right there too. But I like Creed Whitmore still. It's a guy, 5'11", 185. And of course, I completely forgot to mention Ryan Davis, who Utah also landed in the transfer portal. I was prepping for this show, and I felt like I'm leaving out a receiver, but I couldn't remember who exactly it was. And then I totally just remembered that they landed Davis as well. So that was a big get for Utah, landing a guy that he has experience with New Mexico. I do think Davis will be one of the starters. So right now I'll go with Davis, Tia, or Davis Ryan is the guy who was. Oh, excuse me. It was, yeah. So Ryan coming up to Utah now. I think he's a guy that's going to be a starter. He'll be Utah's slot receiver. I think he's going to start. I think Tia will be a starter. And then one of Williams, Zipper, or Stevenson now, I think will be the starter there as a wide receiver. As well as we'll see what happens with Dorian Singer. I like that receiver room for Utah. I think that is a lot of capable pass catchers and guys who could potentially break out in this offense next year. There's some depth there. So if you have an injury, you have another guy to step up. Utah goes 6 deep at receiver to me right now with the chance, and that's not mentioning a Luca Caldarella, who I do think can come in and make a couple plays each game. Not going to light the world on fire, but can still do some positive things for you. And once again, if they add Singer, that makes this group even better. So I like this wide receiver room. Do think it's maybe a little I think they could be improved going into next year, right? Because coming into the season, we were really high on the potential of a Damian Alford, a Micah Pittman with Dorian Singer. That trio thought we were in Money Parks too. We thought they would do big things, but the quarterback position was once again a massive issue, obviously. And the hope is now that you have a guy like Devin Dampier, who had a lot of success at New Mexico, led the fourth best offense in the country, more devastating with legs and arms, sure, but still can sling it out there. I think there's a lot of reason to expect this passing offense to be better. But I just mentioned Damian Alford's name. I think it's important to keep him in mind. When you're talking about a guy like Damian Alford, and Emery Simmons is in this boat too, and I might even, and Micah Pittman now, right? There has been a large history of wide receiver transfers not working out at Utah. So not all of these guys are going to hit. I think they can all make plays, and I think they're all capable of doing positive things for Utah, but they're all not going to hit. Also, I think Munir McLean might be back with Utah. I could be wrong on that. This eligibility thing is so challenging to track. I think Munir McLean might have one more year too. So that's another guy who could be in the mix. But there's a lot of guys in this room who are going to be pushing each other for playing time. And when you bring in this much talent, the hope is, and a new offensive shakeup, that some of these guys are going to pop in 2025. And I do think a couple of them are, because you have improved quarterback play from the last couple of years. And Devin Dampier is a guy who's going to give these guys chances. He already has the chemistry with Davis. We've seen guys like Tia and Stevenson make plays at the collegiate level. Zipper and Williams, I think, have a high ceiling. I like this receiver room. It's not going to be one of the best in the Big 12, but I think there's guys who are going to make plays. And I'll say it again. If you get Dorian Singer back, that changes things as well, because then you add a really elite and dynamic and a true number one just receiver on almost any college football team returning to you. Versus I think Tia has the potential to be a good wide receiver one at the Power 4 level, but he hasn't done it yet. He had 400 yards at Utah State, so expecting him to get 300 plus that at Utah against stiffer competition, even if it was with better quarterback play, that's a lot to ask. So like what I'm seeing out of this rebuilt wide receiver room, Utah's doing a good job getting and adding weapons on the outside. We mentioned Landon King earlier. There are going to be plenty of options for Dampier to throw to. It's fun to see this Utah roster take shape. There's a couple transfer additions I still expect Utah to make, as there's a lot of guys still in the portal, but probably the main pieces are done. So we'll have an episode coming up soon talking about what Utah did in the portal and how it can kind of help propel them moving forward to all the goals and aspirations they have in 2025. But one thing we also know is Utah's passing offense, we would love to see it get back, or just a quarterback play get back this year to what Tyler Huntley was able to do at Utah. It was awesome watching Tyler Huntley go out there in week 18 and ball out against Aaron Rodgers in what could be his final game for the Jets. I want to talk about what we saw from our good old guy Snoop in one moment.